Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Robert Stickle, and I'm also joined by my colleagues Jim Patterson and Paul Estabrooks. Jim and Paul will be today's presenters, and will discuss how digital organizations are transforming to strategic portfolio management. This webinar is a new addition to our series of strategic portfolio management webinars, so if you enjoy this video, feel free to watch the others available on our channel and look towards the next installment, which we'll be releasing soon. And as always, I hope that today's presentation grants you some insight into the world of project and portfolio management and gets you excited for the new developments happening within the industry and here at OnePlan. Thank you again. I'll now turn the presentation over to Jim.
Thanks, Robert, and welcome everybody. We're excited to give you this topic here today. So it's the age of digital transformation that's really driving the need for the topic we're talking about here today. In this day and age, you either disrupt or you are disrupted by these changes that are happening in our modern workplace and in our modern ecosystems. If we look at some of the classic examples of industries that have been disrupted by digital transformation: travel, video rentals, music industry, newspapers, bookstores, department stores, and those aren't the latest. You know, almost any brick and mortar business now has become in some way, shape, or fashion a software company or a digital company to some degree. You know, we look at the ways we've consumed travel with online booking and rideshare apps and, you know, immediate status and notifications and video rentals. What happened to the Blockbusters of the world? Everything is streaming now, seeing things on a mobile device anywhere, anytime. Music, we don't buy records or CDs anymore. You know, everything's online audio, satellite, and even video. Some people just use video for listening to their music. And newspapers, you know, let alone if you're getting a digital copy of the newspaper like I do, but people are using other sources like news feeds and social media to be able to get their information, including instant notifications and alerts that just come up on their mobile devices at any time. You know, bookstores, we have digital readers. Collections are with you always. You buy and access instantly. You don't have to go anywhere to get those types of things. And then the Amazoning of the department stores, you know, with online shopping, with free and fast delivery from any device, so you know, almost on demand, and sometimes same day delivery. If you don't respond, or these organizations that didn't respond to the disruption when it was occurring, are either dinosaurs or severely handicapped at this point. And the list goes on and on. So it's an example that change is the new norm, meaning that the way we used to do business in managing our initiatives and, you know, the projects and other types of efforts that we have within our organization, we can't be slow paced. We can't do these big monolithic things that take a long time to deliver. You know, just make a plan and then stick to the plan and then hope at the end of the day it works. We have a more unpredictable business environment today, and we have to constantly adapt to change. And if our processes and methods and our mindset aren't geared towards succeeding in that type of landscape, we are not going to succeed moving forward into the future. On top of that, the speed of change is continuing to accelerate. We don't have the time to dawdle. We have to get on these things, respond to them quickly. Otherwise, our customers will move on to other things and other places and other sources. So the inevitable impact of all these changes, it's going to rise to new challenges across the enterprise. First, it's going to put a premium on the speed at which we innovate, let alone allocating enough time to innovation and not just in operating our current model. So the idea of the speed and the responsiveness is which we have to come to market with things, with products or different versions of products or the next generation of things is much more quick than it used to be. We also have more savvy consumers today. They're more educated. They get to research a lot of things online before they even get to us. They used to rely on us to educate them. Now they're already educated by the time they get to us, and they want to know why they should choose us. And there's a demand for simplicity in this digital age. The technology behind all of our products and systems today have a lot of complexity behind them. But the demand in this app culture, where people want to load things onto, say, their mobile device and start working with something, simplicity and ease of use is still, from the front-end user experience, something that is demanded. And the rise of competition. You know, there were certain marketplaces where you had to be a pretty big company even to play. You had to be, you know, more of an enterprise to play in certain areas. But now with cloud computing and the access to technology, startups and smaller companies can become our competition where they never were before. meaning things are coming at us from a lot of different angles, especially on the innovation side of things with more nimble players. And the time to value, we have to provide value, not just provide something. We have to provide value either to our customers or to our organizations. And the idea is we have to provide that quickly. Otherwise, our customers will move on to other things and places and invest their money elsewhere. Now, this makes changes to all levels of the organization, whether it's the executives who have to plot out the strategies, sort out what are our new business models and how to reach our customers, and different product areas for us to get into, for example, or service areas to get into. And it affects our PMOs who are dealing with an increasing number of digital projects, even in our more brick and mortar or traditional types of companies. The software development teams, it's imperative that they deliver quality things that the customers want, because a lot of products today are driven by the user interface for what they can get on the web. And then we have to support that so the customer experience is great. So just examples of some of the areas that are all impacted by these digital changes. So then we get to this term digital transformation. And to some people it sounds like it's a buzzword. It almost becomes cliche at this point because of how often we hear it. But it's got some tangible meaning to it. It's more than just technology when we think of digital transformation. It does encompass the dimensions of people, process, and technology. It's new ways of looking at the business. What do we need to do to thrive? What are our customers looking for? What are the opportunities and the threats that we have to deal with as we address all these types of things? We have to be creative and responsive in the way that we do that. There's a increased focus on the customer, and which is a good thing for the customer. And it's also a good thing for us as companies, because delivering the right thing for the customer will generally lead to success if it resonates with them and they want it. So this customer focus, or the passion for customer success, is something that is not a trend. It's something that's here with us and here to stay. And these new strategies and approaches to take advantage of these new opportunities and or dealing with threats is something that we have to do in this transformation as we factor that in. And it's not just the things that we do customer facing in this digital transformation. We have to have all the back office systems and processes to be able to support this once we enable it. In order to be successful with it, if we don't do it holistically, we're not going to succeed at it. And it's also a mindset change. And we'll talk about that a little bit more here. But we can't just put systems and processes in place and technology in place and think that's the job and that it's done. We have to change our mindsets and the way we approach things throughout the entire organization. So as we evolve to more of a product orientation and more agile approaches to be more nimble in doing these types of things, there's certain things that happen. One is these larger, bigger, monolithic sometimes types of projects, we end up breaking them into smaller, easier to manage pieces so that we can deal with them more incrementally. We also deliver them more iteratively, so we get value sooner, and so we can also adapt to changing conditions as they come up. The organizations also start changing kind of the performance management metrics that we use, and those have to transform as well. If we're looking at what really matters and what the value is, and a more value focus, we have to looking at different ways that we measure ourselves and what we define as success. And this provides benefits to us, this project to product orientation shift. It brings benefits at all levels. One is it allows executives more latitude and more focus in the areas that are working and be able to easily exit from things that maybe aren't working so well. Things that we do with this project to product focus and get a more product orientation is to get value sooner out of the things that we're investing in, to delight our customers by providing them the right things that they want and in a way that they want to have it. This whole breaking these things down into smaller chunks and deliver iteratively allows us to adapt quickly to change, because as we're delivering in these types of smaller chunks, we can learn things that might change our assumptions of what we thought the next thing was going to be, and prioritize our work based on those types of things. We can get prioritization based on the factors that really matter to our customers and the things that are really going to deliver value. And if we're delivering more incrementally, it's easier to deliver quality in those smaller chunks than to deliver them on bigger, more monolithic things that has large regression testing types of needs and those types of things. So the idea is the quality can improve as well. Now, having teams that are dedicated to these products has a lot of benefits to it, but one of the things it allows us to do is adjust team size to demand. Things that are the most successful and in most demand and most complex of those types of things may justify bigger teams as opposed to smaller teams for the less significant things that we're working with. And we become leaner organizations with less overhead as we have these dedicated teams, because we could become more efficient with teams that learn and get better by focusing on a particular product or focus area at any one given time. So there's a lot of benefits, and this is just some of them. Now, changing this model, from the old traditional, more waterfallish project plans, that mindset was, all right, we put a plan in place, we commit, this is what we're going to do, and we try to avoid change at all cost. And it ends up tending to be longer duration projects, and we deliver some big bang value at the end of that. And possibly, if it's a long enough project, by the time you get to the finish line, it might not be the right thing, as the circumstances and the environment and the demands of the customer may have changed. Now, as we break these things down into smaller chunks, we're now moving to a productized type of approach where we're dealing more with product roadmaps. These product roadmaps are more kind of continuous delivery and continuous development type of focus, where we're kind of continuously putting out releases or versions of products as we go through these cycles. And we have dedicated teams that are focused in their expertise onto those specific areas. Now, for a company to do that, all companies are a bit different, and I showed a bunch of industries earlier on, but the idea is you have to define a product structure, and those can typically be product families in this example, with their specific products, say, within those product families. But then we have to align these groupings to the stakeholders and the customers that they are addressing. We have to assign teams to these, and these assigned teams now can become dedicated to these things, can become experts, and can learn through the successes and failures of what works and what doesn't. And they can become more proficient and get better and better output or velocity as they go through these things. And then when we do this, we can then put out product roadmaps that can tell our customers and internally our teams what it is we intend to do next, and how we're prioritizing these things, and what we are going to produce, and have a clear line of sight to all those things. And another big thing is the way we budget. When we budget projects in the old project world, we were actually budgeting projects in and of themselves and funding them at that project level for that specific endeavor. Now, more in this product-oriented world, people are funding product lines, or they're funding, what would be called a value stream, would be analogous to, say, a product line, and funding it at that higher level. And then as we're doing releases and versions of that, you're basically consuming incrementally parts of that budget that's dedicated for a bigger purpose with those dedicated teams. And as I said, you can adjust those team sizes and whether or not we have teams allocated to these things as we learn more and as the market changes and as we adapt to that change. So what is a product? I know this sounds like a 101 type of slide, but just to define it, it could be a number of different things, but here's some of the criteria. It serves customers, both in either internal or external. So it's something that serves somebody. It's something that provides value. It delivers capabilities of customers, of value to them that they want to have. It's something that's named and clearly defined. You can touch it, you can feel it, you can define it. It can also be a repeatable service. It doesn't necessarily have to be a tangible product. It could be a service that you're providing as a product. It could also be a platform. We think about products which are like cloud platforms we support or do things in. A platform itself can be a product. And it has to be something that can be bought, sold, or subscribed to. It's something that has some commercial value, or something that we as the provider can monetize. And it likely has competitors. I would say that if you have a product that's worth something to the marketplace, you will have competitors because there is demand for it out there. And I would say if we have something that doesn't have competitors for a very long period of time, we might have to ask ourselves, is there really demand out there? Is this something that people want? So if we move to more of a product model and become more agile in this, the key things are the concept of a stable autonomous team, as opposed to the old matrixed organizations and the projectized organization where you have these functional areas that house the resources, and projects would solicit from these different functional areas the expertise they need. Stable autonomous teams have all the capabilities and the skill sets in that team cross-functionally to allow you to do everything that's needed. And the idea is that that's how they get better. They learn to work together better. They provide everything without having to solicit from other parts of the organization, and they can just get after the business of working and delivering value. And then an agreed to roadmap. Typically you have a product manager or product owner that keeps us on the right course, that makes sure that we are interpreting correctly what the internal or external customer wants or what our stakeholders are demanding, and works as that liaison and making sure that the development teams and those stable autonomous teams are working on the right things that are delivering the value that the customer wants. Because ultimately in this model, the focus is to keep customers and stakeholders happy. And if we deliver the right thing with the right value, and we deliver it quickly and on time, the customers will tend to be delighted, especially if it's with the proper quality. Now, the analysts like Gartner tell us that the shift is well underway. They've done surveys like this one, where the question would be, would like to understand the depth of the adoption of product-centric model in the past, present, and future. Now, this was done a couple of years ago, but it's pretty much coming to fruition. And the idea is, if you look at from 2016 to the percentage of the depth of these CIOs saying to what percentage of your efforts are being done in a product-centric model, the percentage of the depth of that in an organization has grown. There was surveys done earlier on about how many organizations are doing it at all, and those numbers were growing. But this is now the depth of those organizations and how much of the work that they take on in these areas are more product-oriented, and it's growing. And as you see, this projection of 79% by the end of 2022. So the key is to deliver value sooner. In that longer term, more waterfallish type of approach, there's a lot of maybes in there. The maybes are, can we deliver what we said in the requirements and what our assumptions were, say, a year ago? And the other maybe is what our assumptions were of what we were delivering. Is that something the customer is still going to be wanting in the form that we intended to deliver it at the end of that longer period of time? On top of that, you had to get this budgeted, and organizations had to spend all the money before they actually got to the end line and then hope that it delivered the value at the end of the day in more of a big bang approach. In this new product-oriented model, each outcome delivers value incrementally. So for example, you are now funding a chunk of work that delivers, say, a minimal viable product at the outset. And that is going to stand on its own as far as did it deliver value or not. And if it did what it did for the money that was spent, it will justify incrementally adding the investment to the next iteration or the next release or the next value of that. And it will deliver and pay for itself on the way based upon the expenditure mapping more or aligning more chronologically with the value being received. Another survey done by Gartner was about the top goals and why people moved to this product-centric delivery model. And in this, what are your organization's top goals for using a product-centric delivery model? And 3 of the top answers, other than increasing customer satisfaction, which was an obvious primary goal, you look at the next 3 was time to market or value, responding faster to changing or unclear requirements, and responding faster to changing priorities. These things really are essential and critical if we are going to be successful in this new age. So on top of that, outside of the approaches, outside of the systems that you might put in place for these types of things, organizations must change. It's the IT people and the stakeholders alike. The entire organization really has to have a culture change and a mindset change to make this work. The old ways of doing business, it's hard to shift, especially larger organizations, and you must do it just a few degrees at a time. But to get here, that mindset of how we do this has to change, and we have to embrace it across the organization. This cartoon off to the right, what if we don't change at all and something magical just happens? We can't put our heads in the sand, or just like those dinosaurs that we talked about in the first slide in this presentation, like the Blockbusters of the world that lost their edge as leaders in the marketplace. It could be us if we don't respond and do something tangible, not only from a technology perspective, but also from a people and process perspective as well. So some changing approaches, just some mindset things. Think about from a funding perspective. Projects were budgeted for the life of project and, project-centric type of budgeting based on resources and time. On a product focus, it's ongoing share of the budget, as I said, at a product level or a value stream level based on the business need and the ROI. A different focus on how it's funded. The work itself, projects, they end on a fixed date and deliver at certain milestones or phases. But in a product cycle, It ends when the product is retired. It's a continuous delivery of different releases and versions of the product until the product no longer is viable. And change, in a project mindset, change is avoided and when possible managed through change requests. But the idea is the goal of a waterfall type of approach is to avoid changes at all possible and resist them. Products in a product orientation, they're embraced and executed by more lean, agile teams that value speed of delivery and delivering the right thing in a more incremental fashion. In the focus of projects, the success of a project is determined in the metrics we're on time, on budget, minimizing risk. Product focus is more about delivering outcomes and the most valuable thing to do next when we're prioritizing them. What is the most valuable thing to our customers that we're delivering? And the teaming of this and the resourcing of this, in the project world, it's like I said earlier, a matrix and functional specialization that we borrow resources from. Sometimes an organization have to beg to get them. But in products, they're multidisciplined, self-contained, autonomous product teams that actually can deliver and do the things that they need to do quickly and responsibly. And by tracking variance and cost of time against the plan, the tracking in a product orientation is by the number of teams, the value delivered, and the ROI achieved on those types of things is the focus. It's all about value. Just some new language. So for example, in the old, a project plan was the term, but in new, a product roadmap and a team backlog. A project may now be a minimum viable product or some product output. The old earned value management now becomes things like, what are the burn rates and backlogs and velocities and those types of things. And stage gates become things like continuous delivery and release trains. So the idea, it is a mindset, it is a nomenclature set, and it's also a different focus. So OnePlan really enables this with the solutions that we provide. And in this move to more strategic portfolio management, which is really what this is about, is looking at all these different dimensions of strategy, technology, assets, execution, etc. And the idea is that you have business leaders, as I said, mapping out these strategies and new ways of doing business. The execution leaders who have to have the initiatives and the efforts and the products that they have to deliver on. And the technology and the IT leaders have to map out technology feasibility and the assets that we do have and what needs to be changed from that factor. But all these dimensions have to be factored in if we're going to be successful in delivering the right things at the right time to our customers. And OnePlan here, Paul is going to demonstrate here today how this product orientation can be adopted in here and modeled in here and also be effectively used so that all factors that we need to factor in a product orientation or a more agile approach can be accommodated. So in this need for alignment, we're going to show you today how OnePlan can accommodate the strategic planning and the execution of that strategic plan, how it can model an enterprise architecture, which includes the products and the product lines that we were talking about, and also the portfolio of initiatives, which we formally would call projects. And these things all interrelate with one another so that we can make the right decisions on what to do next, and where to put our money and our investments overall as we embark upon this, and then have tools to help us execute on this and have the right metrics to make sure that we're on course in delivering value. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Paul, and he'll demonstrate these things to you in OnePlan.
Thank you, Jim. So as Jim just said in that slide, I'm going to jump into this. I'm going to start with the strategy. I'm going to jump into the portfolio, and I'll show you the linkage to the product component of the enterprise architecture as we go. So here I am in my strategy section in OnePlan. So I've got this area over here called strategy or strategic themes in this particular demo. And in this demo environment, we've got a real agile bend to this with program increments and products and the things that Jim has just been talking about. But we wanted to start with this idea of strategic themes, and underneath that, specific key results. So sort of a standard OKR model that says we have certain things we want to accomplish in this demo. We have 3 of them. They have some key results on them. We might want to sort of spend a bit more time and build this out a little bit further if we were really digging into this. But for the sake of this discussion, I've got 3 objectives, and underneath that 4 or so key results. And what I want to be able to, I do this so that the business leadership can say these are the things that matter. And when we get into the portfolio in a second, we're going to show that linkage between the epics that we are working on and how they support these core objectives. So that's sort of where we wanted to start this from. So from an SPM perspective, the business leadership has sort of set down, these are our goals, these are our objectives, and what we want to work on, and these are the key results that we're trying to accomplish. And now, what are the initiatives to make that happen? So if I jump into my portfolio, and I'm just going to look, I'm going to start with, I'm in the lean portfolio, I'm in the lean portfolio summary dashboard, or I should be, there we go. And I'll just show you that I've got in here, in this particular structure, I have a portfolio, it has value streams, and underneath that, those value streams in some cases have products, or projects rather, and in most cases they have epics, and underneath those epics are features. So a standard sort of structure that you might see in this enterprise agile model. What I want to do is I'm going to just switch this around. I'm going to just focus on epics for a minute. And when I do that, you'll see here all the epics that we have in this particular environment. Each of them is associated to one of the strategic themes. Some of them are aligned to release trains, and all of them have been assigned to some teams. And we've got story points and completed stories and so forth. So some status data around that. I'm then going to group it quickly by product, which Jim just talked about. So we have in here, let me pull that back out, a series of products that we need to work on, that we're working towards, and so we're organizing our epics around these different products. And you can see each product itself has a rolled up budget of the various epics underneath it. So we could build that out a bit further. We could maybe assign an overarching budget and see how much we've consumed of that for each product, as Jim talked about. But very quickly, I could see where are these epics and how do they align by my different products. Now, we're going to pivot it again. We're going to go in here and we're going to look at it on my PI summary. So my program increments. So ignore the dates for the sake of this discussion, but you could see we have organized these items into, in this case, features, into the different program increments that we are planning out. So as we continuously plan, in this case, every quarter is a new program increment. Underneath that, there might be several sprints, depends on how you want to structure it. But we've put different features, which are a subset of those epics, into their respective program increments. And I can view that here very quickly and just see, okay, where does it all fit? Maybe some other information I might want to know about that. So now, maybe a different pivot on that. I'm going to first start with my board view. And I want to look at my board view by that same organization of product. So here, and this is a common kind of view for people who are doing, whether it's Kanban or any of those types of approaches, is to be able to organize using boards. So my columns here are my products, and you could see the different epics and where they fit in against those products. And you can now also start to see some of those relationships. So you can see strings. So we have three types of strings: a dependency, a blocker, or a related project. So one might be dependent on another, one might be blocking something else for some reason, or the two might be related in some way. Then we want to be able to articulate that. So we could see that here very quickly in a product view. Now, I'm going to go and do some PI actual planning. So I'm going to go to my board called PI planning. And in here, you can see I've got everything loaded up. I've got my different program increments, and you can see I've set thresholds on each one for how much budget we want to spend in each one. And you can see I've overspent in some, so I could actually just move this out, start to reorganize things a little bit. And you can see I overdid it. I better move that one back. And we'll see how that recalculates. And so now, a little closer, I'm still a little bit over, but I'm starting to work this out. I also have in here a backlog of items that we have yet to assign to a program increment. So I could move items around, maybe start and add a couple more program increments out into the future and start to see where will stuff go. How do I want to organize my upcoming program increments using these cards? And I know they're hard to read, but I can actually take them back and bring them into a size where I can read them. I just wanted to be able to show you more quickly, and I can see what types of information are on those in terms of how we might be going about and finishing those. So this is that world of continuous improvement. I've got epics and features and so forth, and I want to know where they fit into each of my upcoming program increments so that I can plan accordingly. And I can start to add lanes too. I could put a lane in here that might be the teams or my release trains. But if I come down here, find teams, there we go. I can now see how that organizes by team. So I can organize how I want to see this and where things are and move things around and organize accordingly. My third type of view is a kind of a classic view is I might want to look at my roadmap, but again, by product. So where do those epics fit now sort of in a time scale and see how they structure together, where there might be some interdependency at the epic level, and look at everything again grouped by that product that we've been managing the whole time. So 3 different views. The classic list views where we can pull up status information, budget data, and so forth. We can add additional columns, see which strategies things are linked to, filter, group, and sort, and so forth. Board views where we can move things around and understand the cause and effect of making those decisions and plot things out for upcoming program increments and how things organize. And then here in roadmap views where we want to look at it on a time dimension, we could see how things fit. So now if I want to jump into, and I want to go into a little bit of detail, so I'm going to grab this particular project and we're going to dive into sort of how we got here a little bit. So first off, I'm on this particular Epic homepage, and you can see it has a funnel, or sorry, not a funnel, a workflow where we've gone through this lean portfolio management. So we've gone through sort of that assessing and so forth, and we're now in implementing. It is linked to that strategy, a strategic theme here. It's also linked to a value stream and so forth. Whoops, didn't want to click there. It's linked to a release train. It's also tied to an actual application in our enterprise architecture. It spans a couple of program increments and so forth. So we have all of this rich data. Obviously, this is configurable to be the kind of things that you want to track. And there is the product that it's linked to as well. So we know what product it's associated with, that it's related to, and for budgets and all the rest of it. We know what strategy it's trying to help achieve. We know what applications underneath that might be in play, and we know what program increments it's in. And if I scroll down, we could see all the different features, and again, what program increments they are in, and other items that are in the backlog that have yet to be assigned accordingly as to where they might go. So on that single view, I could see all of that rich information about this particular epic. Likewise, I could start to manage a budget. I'm going to look at this budget. Maybe I want to do this. I'm going to go to quarters. Sure, apply. So that I could see over those different quarters. Again, we're doing program increments by quarter, so I might want to do my budget accordingly. You could see how the different teams are coming into play and any other items that we might be purchasing or spending money on as part of this particular epic. This epic then rolls up to part of the cost of the product. Likewise, I can look at this at the resource plan, and you can see I've got team 1 and team 3. I probably need to jump back in time, where I could see where the resources are committed to the project. And again, I'm organizing in this case by teams as opposed to individuals. I've got a couple of individuals, might be a PM or some other role that's involved in this at some point, but I do have my teams and I'm tracking those accordingly. So I know where my resources are, what my capacity, and then if I started to track actuals on this, then variance would start to show up. So I could see what we're really doing. And so we've plotted this out so that we could see from a sprint perspective when and where those resources are being used. Third thing I want to show here is the work plan. So we can manage our actual schedule in a board. We can also do it in a list view with a backlog type list. This particular project is connected to Azure DevOps, so I could be pulling that data in, organizing it in a backlog. Apologies, I didn't show that. So that you can sort of organize your things and assign them to sprints, track which sprints they're in, and roll that up through to your program increments. All of that rich capability is there. So I'm going to go back to and conclude on, I'm going to go back to my portfolio for just a second. We want to bring this sort of full circle. Jim talked a little bit about this. So once we've tracked all of this information and we've put in these different, we've put in all this data and we're tracking it against products, we're doing our program increments. What we might want to then look at is, if I go here, jump back, is how are we performing as an organization? So we have a rich report pack that runs through these various scenarios. So I could see all my lean metrics. How am I performing? How does the overall portfolio lay out? if I want to look at it from strategic theme costs. So perhaps I want to see at the strategic theme, how much are we investing in each of these in order to accomplish them? What's the return on that? Maybe I also want to look at this, I like this particular view, a quarterly analysis of how are we progressing against our various epics in terms of our performance, in this case, financially. Are we getting where we wanted to go, and are we accomplishing what we set out to? And we can continue to adjust and pivot as we move forward. So we've looked at the articulation of strategy and then all of the execution organized around a product framework and around program increments, and how we tie that back to strategy to monitor and make sure that we're delivering on the things that the business cares about most. And as the business climate changes, that we adjust accordingly. And within that, we can organize our features and our epics in a board view. We can organize them in roadmaps to be able to view them and other list data, as well as within each one, we can create that linkage so we can show how an epic is tied to a specific strategic theme, as well as a product, applications, and other components that we've built out within the system, and then organize that data, track the resourcing requirements, the budgets, and manage the schedules and the work accordingly, and then be able to report on that rich data and pivot and reorganize as necessary and adjust to the ever-changing business climate that we all live in. And with that, Jim, I'll turn it back to you.
Terrific. Well, thank you for that great overview demonstration, Paul. Hopefully you saw some of those concepts in action today in the audience. Just to summarize what we talked about here today and showed you, that digital transformation is disrupting organizations as we speak, and it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And we really do need to rethink our business models and approaches if we're going to succeed in this new era. The product-centric approaches with more agile execution, they are growing and they are rapidly expanding in depth within organizations. And we need to deliver value to customers quickly and quickly adapt to changes as they occur if we're going to remain relevant in our marketplaces. OnePlan can provide tools to support these modern approaches and methods, and we have the most complete strategic portfolio management capabilities available in the Microsoft Cloud. Organizations can work on the right things, execute well with the right mindset, culture and organization, etc. And the technology that OnePlan provides can really help enable or facilitate that change or that changeover as we go do those things, to help us practice those disciplines in an effective manner. Now, we do these things because project and portfolio management are our passion. You know, we are focused, even though we have multiple Microsoft Gold certifications, we are recognized and we have a passion, and we spend most of our time in this project and portfolio management arena. We're recognized by Microsoft as their Partner of the Year globally recently, as well as by Gartner and Infotech and Scaled Agile Inc., and even by as one of the most reputable companies of the year, as one of the 30 most. So we live in this area. We're not a general systems integrator or technology provider. We really have a passion about this technology and about these disciplines. We do webinars like this almost every week. Next week, we have another twist on the strategic portfolio management theme, and really talking more about it and how it relates to companies that are practicing enterprise agile or want to strive to do enterprise agile, but factor in the strategic portfolio management disciplines into that approach. Get started today. OnePlan does offer you free trials. If you go up to AppSource on Microsoft, we have different models out there that you can actually get your hands on and work with on a free trial basis. And we're happy to support or chaperone you through that process to make sure that your use cases are properly represented and then you have a successful experience with those trials. As well as we do offer roadmap workshops. If you're interested in what it would take to get into something like this, you know, we can help by doing a quick review of your current solutions and tools that you use, assess your current requirements and where you'd like to be in a desired future state, and determine what it would take to get you into a solution like this and what the best roadmap for this might be and what it might cost you. You might even own some of the Microsoft technologies that you might even need for this, or some of the technologies you already need for this, so it may be only an incremental investment on your part. So for the next steps, you know, please take us up on the trial. Free trial. Please take us up on the roadmap workshop. But if you're not in either of those places yet, This was an overview demo, high level. If you have specific needs and you want a personalized one-on-one demo that focuses on your use cases and requirements, please reach out to us, engage with us, and we'll schedule one for you and provide that for you. You can reach us at contact@oneplan.ai. Even if you just want more information, go to www.oneplan.ai and dig around on our website to show the breadth, to understand the breadth of our offerings. Either way, we would love to engage with you. We'd like to thank you for your participation here today, but it doesn't need to stop here. We really are invested in success, meaning we're invested in our customer success. So please reach out to us either at the general contact number, or you can reach out to Paul or I individually if you care to. So OnePlan's vision is really to provide one interface, one experience, all in one plan via the OnePlan capabilities. So thank you again for attending today, and you can look forward to a copy of the recording and the slides very shortly. Have a great day.